Swinging a drive. Right field and deep. Back goes Aquino. It's got a chance. Gone. Get out the tape measure. Long gone.
Fly the W!
Cubs fans, it's time to fly the W with Dustin Rhodes and Paul Crawly Jean.
All right, Crawly, Season 4, Episode 62, the Cubs 2025 Autopsy Part 2. This is the Players Edition, Crawly, and you're listening to the Fly the W podcast. We are part of the Blue Wire Network. Don't forget to listen, download, subscribe. Most importantly, review our podcast. Follow on all the socials. I'm at Mully and Haw on X.
And you can follow me at Crawly's Cubs on X, Blue Sky, and TikTok. Crawly's Clubhouse on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Threads. You can email us at crawlysclubhouse@gmail.com.
Well, before we get to the Autopsy Part 2, Crawly, we do have a World Series. The Blue Jays get a big 3-run home run from George Springer in the 7th inning, and it will be Blue Jays-Dodgers starting in Toronto on Friday night.
I'm going to be honest. I was pulling for the Mariners, but hey, you know what? As long as the Blue Jays beat the Dodgers, I'll be okay with it. But for all the people that thought baseball was dead, I think that they have really created a really good product, and this postseason has been a lot of fun.
It has been a lot of fun. We'll get to more of that as we go through the podcast. But right now we are continuing to go through Jed Hoyer's press conference, which was a week ago tomorrow. That was 1 week ago tomorrow. And we're going to go through a couple more sound bites and give our thoughts and opinions on that.
Yeah, as we talked about last time, Jed was talking about his comments on the team, the season, evaluated Craig and the coaching staff and the Cubs postseason run. But today we're going to look at some of those players that he brought up. And it was interesting because, there was a lot of really good stories going on here. Now, the one person we're not going to discuss because he's going to take a little more time is Kyle Tucker. And you already hear, Dustin, that the Dodgers are sniffing around.
Dodgers were in on Kyle Tucker. Okay. All right.
Right. All right. So we'll get to that long off season. But, one of the first people that, you got to talk about that Jed mentioned and just an unbelievable season was Pete Crow Armstrong. Here is Jed Hoyer on PCA.
In totality, a great year, going 30-30 and driving in almost 100 runs. And obviously the shape of that year, and I think he was so good early on, and then he struggled. And this is his first full season, and that's something I talked to Pete a lot about during the course of the year, that this is the first time he's gone through the entire season. He obviously plays really hard, and is kind of the backbone of our defense. And so there could have been some fatigue there that set in. And I do think that going forward, I think he's gonna have to shrink his strike zone, and he's gonna have to focus on those things. But I think he will. He's still 23 years old. He's still learning. So I expect him to just kind of keep getting better and better. It may be gradual. It may come all at once, but I have no question that it'll continue to get better. And the one thing with Pete that I always focus on is, when he's not hitting or when he's struggling offensively, he's a great player. And when he's hitting, he's a superstar, because what he does defensively night in, night out is unbelievable. I think he's the best defensive player in baseball. And, the number of catches he makes head high that other teams' center fielders don't get to is remarkable. And he had not only did he have a huge role on our team offensively, but I think when you think about run prevention, he's right there at the top of it.
Yeah, I would agree with Jed. He, to me, is the best defensive player in baseball, Dustin. And when you look at PCA, Jed mentioned it, right? He got a cup of coffee in 2023, right? 13 games. And then in 2024, he started the season, but then he was sent down to Iowa, right? But he played 123 games with the big club. But 2025 was the first full season in the bigs. How many games do you think he played this year?
159.
157 games.
Okay.
Right. Out of 162. I mean,
I knew it wasn't 162, but I thought it was Thought it was close.
Right.
There were a couple more at Wrigley now that you give me the number that I do remember now, because Craig was very big on we weren't going to sit him at Wrigley, if we didn't have to. So, but they ended up having to.
Right. The first half defied anyone's expectations. Dustin, the first half, you heard the chance of MVP. I think hopefully we learned that we don't do that until the end. Maybe
MVP.
Let's wait till the end of the year to do that. But before the All-Star game, he slashed 265, 302, 544, had 99 hits, 21 doubles, 4 triples, 25 home runs, 71 runs batted in, and he stole 27 bases. Now, he does, after the All-Star game, he slashed 216, 262, 372, 47 hits, 16 doubles, no triples, 6 homers, 24 runs batted in, and only 8 stolen bases. August was a disaster. He slashed 160, 216, 230, his worst month of the season.
Now, do you think at that point, Crawly, is he just pooped, or have the pitchers come around on him? Any guess or speculation on why August was so bad?
I think the dog days does get to him a little bit. And, when we look at how Pete started out, remember he was batting like 6'7", 7'8", right around there. Yep. And then as he started to play better and better and better and better, he got moved up in the order. And I wonder if that kind of put some pressure on him. I wonder if he kind of got out of his swing a little bit.
Okay. That's good. That's a good thought. That's a good reason why that might have happened the way it did. Yep.
Right. And so I don't know if Dustin Kelly, I know John Maley worked with him a lot. I'd be curious to see what those guys had to say. But Dustin, regardless of the second half, he's the first Cub player since Sammy Sosa to hit 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases. The first franchise player, 30 doubles, 30 home runs, and 30 stolen bases. And then as Jed mentioned, his defense was outstanding. If you look at outs above average, Pete was worth 24 outs above average, most in all of baseball. He was worth 15 defensive runs saved, second only to Boston center fielder Cedane Raphael. You could really argue that he deserves the platinum glove for the best defensive player in the National League. I think that's what Jed was alluding to there. I guess, Dustin, the question then next year, kind of what we were talking about, what kind of numbers do you expect from him offensively? I mean, is 30 home runs a huge ask again, or do you think maybe more consistent numbers but less power? Where would
probably
you
more consistent, less power? I'm guessing we may have seen the high water mark in his career for home runs. And I think he would actually probably be okay with that. But then before we get on to the next cut, I think we need to talk quickly or a little bit. Bruce Levine has had multiple reports about contracts that he has turned down. At one point, it was in the high 70s. Now Bruce is saying that they got up into the 90s, and the PCA turned down a $90 million contract. Now, we don't have the years. We don't have how many years was associated with that. But boy, I wonder if he's going to regret, because if they were back at the negotiating tables, I'm guessing that number is in the low 7s. It's not in the 8s, and it's not in the 9s after his second half.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, and I think so. When you're talking about his service time and all that stuff, he still has time to turn it around, right? To be a more consistent player, a better player as he gets to know the pitchers. As he gets more familiar with being a full-time year-round player, he may get better. And one of the things that these guys do sometimes is bet on themselves. And so I think that's what Pete's doing. And
right. I'm just saying as every right, of course, just with the uncertainty of what's going on with the future economics of baseball, right? I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty, and there might be a salary cap, that the rules might be different about service time to what you were just speaking to. Lots could change, but if you would have signed for $90 million, that doesn't change. $90 million is $90 million, right? If you sign a contract for $90 million, they're on the hook for $90 million, no matter what you do.
Right. And what we're going to talk about as we move forward is any contract that's signed. Let's say he signs this next year coming up, the 26 year, that'll be grandfather claused into the previous terms, right? So that wouldn't count against a salary cap or anything like that. Right. So I don't think he's in any big hurry. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But again, he's a confident guy. We know that. And so I would say that,
no doubt about that. He is confident.
He's a hard worker too. So I think he's going to bet on himself. And so, I think 90 million. I think he believes that he's going to be a better player and he's going to be worth more than what $90 million is, right? Like, take a look at what Ronald Acuna signed. He signed his deal's laughable almost when you think about what a steal the Braves are getting on that. And so, for every, you could look at some contracts that worked out, others that you said, oh, that was dumb of them not to take it. But, I'm not saying that PCA's Juan Soto, but again, I thought he was nuts for turning down 400 million. He turns it into 800 million.
Right. It worked out. Listen, there's no doubt it can be, it can work out. 90 million though. I mean, when it went from 70 something to 90 something, right? And I just wonder, 90 over, what do you think? 90 over 5, 90 over 6, wasn't 9. I don't think it was 90 over 4, and I don't think it was 90 over 7. So it's either 5 or 6 years, I'm guessing. Obviously, I don't know, just sort of somewhat of an educated guess, depending on who you ask.
You'd probably have to take a look at his service time because they're going to want to buy out his arbitration eligible years and all that stuff. But to me, 90 million, if Pete can be what we think he can be, is on the low end, in my opinion. Okay. And so I think he was smart not to take it. But again, weird things happen in baseball and you never know.
You never know. All right. Next piece of audio. Which player are we talking about next, Crawly?
Shota Imanaga. Here we go.
We signed Shota. He's sort of shown us his production over the last 2 years. He would have taken that in a heartbeat. So not only has he produced for us, but he's just a great teammate. Terrific asset to the organization. Obviously we have decisions to make and we have discussions to make, and we over the next 2 or 3 weeks we'll do that. But I've got nothing positive things to say about Shota.
So, okay, fair to say, Dustin, that Shota has outperformed expectations in his first couple of years with the Cubs, right? Like when we first got Shota, when Shota was first signed, we didn't expect him to have the year that he did last year. Cy Young candidate, in the Cy Young discussion, Rookie of the Year discussion, all that stuff. Fair to say he outperformed it, right? But there's still concerns. Mm-hmm. And the word before, when he signed, was he gave up the home run ball a lot. And we saw it a little bit in the first season, but not that bad. But we did see it more this year. But Dustin, just another head scratcher. If you look at the pre versus post All-Star game, now remember that there are more games before the All-Star game than after. It's not dead.
It's not the mid. It's not exactly the midpoint, right?
No, but because of Shota's injury to his lower body in early May, he missed some time. So pre All-Star game, he pitched 68 innings. Post All-Star game, he pitched 76 innings and 2/3 innings. So pre All-Star game, he gave up 47 hits. Post All-Star game, okay. Pre he gave up post All-Star 40 pre 11 post All-Star game gave 20 home league all game. The end of the season was a complete train wreck. September was a disaster. He had a 6.51 ERA, gave up 20 earned runs and 10 home runs. He gave up a key home run to Manny Machado in the wild card series, a key 3-run home run to Andrew Vaughn in the division series. That was the last game he pitched in the postseason. Craig wouldn't hand him the ball in Game 5. That was it. And so Shota allowed 23 home runs in his last 14 games. Now, Dustin, here's where it gets complicated. Shota's contract is written with a club option that would pay Imanaga $57 million over 3 years. So the Cubs have to make a decision this offseason. Are they going to pay him that $57 million? It's $20 million in 2026 and 2027 and $17 million in 2028. Okay. Now let's say they say, no, we don't want to do that. We're not going to pick up that option. Imanaga has the ability to trigger a player option for $15 million in 2026. Then the Cubs would be able to come back to add 2 years and $42 million onto the deal for 2027 and 2028. Or he would have another player option worth $15 million. So this is complicated, but speaking of it right here, if the Cubs exercise their option, it's about $19 million annual average value over 3 years. And so Imanaga would be tied with Chris Sale of the Braves as the 25th highest paid starting pitcher. That's not ridiculous there. Mm-hmm. And so I think when you talk about, but if Shota wants to, he could also test the free agent market. If the Cubs don't pick it up and Shota doesn't pick up the player option, he could go into free agency. But I think it's hard because he gave up home runs. It's what he does, but it was just the amount of home runs at the very end and the amount of people on base when he gave up those home runs, right? Most of the time last year, we saw him give up solo home runs, but when, you saw what happened this year, Dustin, with pitching, and, you lost Cade Horton at the end. Justin Steele went down. Jed always talks about not having enough pitching. I have a hard time seeing the Cubs. When you're talking about 25th highest paid starting pitcher, is that does that seem unrealistic to you?
No.
That's about what you'd pay him. I think the Cubs got a good deal on Chris Sale, or the Braves did. I'm sorry, but I think 25th is about right. So I think that picking up that option, it's not as much of a no-brainer as it was before September, but I still think it's not something they're worried about.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we also have to see who's out there, who's available, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, those are all things that are going to be there, but you got the guy in-house, who he is, you got the interpreter, you got all these things. I think he's been a great asset to the team. I just, maybe it had something to do with his leg injuries, right? That he ended up starting to struggle a little bit, losing a little bit of velocity and stuff like that. There's a lot of questions you might have about it. I don't know.
Yep.
Another big story this year was Matt Shaw. The rookie was handed the keys to the third base job before opening day. Here's Jed on Matt Shaw.
Overall, I think had a really good season. The shape of that season, I think he played well early on after the injury in spring training, and then obviously struggled. We sent him down, we brought him back up, and I think when you look at what he did in the second half, it was really impressive. I think that the most recent thing we just saw was the postseason, and he struggled a bit, but I think, as I said earlier, I think focusing on those 8 games and knowing that the kind of stuff and velocity he was facing every single night, I think that when you're in the postseason, there are guys that are locked in and they feel great about everything offensively that perform really well. But I think if you're struggling with anything and then you're facing the kind of stuff that he was facing, I think it was a challenge for him. But overall, like in totality, I thought he had a really good season to build on. I think he proved himself that he can hit in the big leagues with a really good second half. I think he had 11 homers in the second half. And I think defensively, he really candidly surprised us. I think that was, an area that we didn't know how it was going to go for him. He was playing largely a new position, and he's doing it in the big leagues, and he was exceptional. I think his defense was fantastic. I think when you look at the numbers on his defense, it bears that out, and he was a big part of our run prevention as well. So I think in aggregate, I think Matt had a really good year, and it's something to build on, but he's going to be a really good Cub for a long time.
Dustin, we talked about this at the beginning of the season, how they gave him the job. He got injured in spring training, and then he gets kind of rushed back. He goes to Japan. Remember, they had they were facing just a lot of tough pitchers at the beginning of the year. And so he gets sent down in the middle of April. To his credit, he worked on some things, was back with the club in the middle of May, and stayed there for the rest of the season. He finished with a slash line of 226, 295, 394, 21 doubles, 14 homers, and 17 stolen bases. Now, before the All-Star game, he slashed 198, 276, 280. After he slashed 258, 317, 522. And you heard Jed say, he hit 11 home runs in the second half out of the 14 homers that he had. And so I don't think there was ever a question of whether he could hit or not. I think the question was the glove, and he's a Gold Glove finalist. He's not going to win it, but just the fact that he's even in that conversation, pretty impressive. Very impressive. And I just here's where it gets complicated though, Dustin, is that if you've been listening to and reading the tea leaves, there's a lot of buzz surrounding what the Cubs may do in the offseason at third base. Alex Bregman has opted out of his deal. We know that he was once kind of tied to the Cubs there. There was a Japanese infielder, Kasuma Okamoto, who it doesn't look like he's going to get posted by the Giants. But if he did, people thought that would be a good fit for the Cubs. And so you're saying to yourself, well, wait a sec. If they're going to upgrade the third base, what would that mean to Matt Shaw, right? And that could mean, just another year in Iowa to develop hitting. I don't know if there's going to be a lot he can get out of it. He could also be a utility player, giving people more rest, letting Dansby get more rest, letting Nico get more rest, being able to continue to play a little bit of third for whoever they would get. We're going to talk in later episodes about this idea of what this Cubs core is going to look like after the 2026 season, because there's not a lot of guys that are under contract in the 2026 season. So Nico Horner is one of those guys. And to me, Nico, we talked about as far as, MVPs for this Cubs team, Nico's up there, but his contract's done after the 2026 season. Do you extend him? Or do you are you done with them and then move Matt Shaw into second, which is more of his natural position, and get more of a power hitting third baseman? So these are all questions that are coming up there. But I think it was a pretty good season for Matt Shaw. I wish, like I've talked about many times on this podcast, they would have gone a different route though, rather than have him start out and struggle and try to kind of figure this out. Because to me, this was your one and done year with Kyle Tucker. And I thought that was a position they could have added, and they could have had,
maybe next year him and Alex Bregman can platoon, Crawly.
I don't think if you're signing Alex Bregman, it's not to platoon. So we're going to be in some trouble.
Well, I mean, Bregman could be the third baseman / DH.
I don't see that happening as far as third base.
I don't either. I'm just dreaming. Okay,
you can dream. You're good to dream
on a cool Tuesday in October. Okay.
I just think that when you talk about Owen Casey and Moises Ballesteros and all these guys, you're gonna there's only one DH spot, and so we'll see what happens. Another young player. We talked about PCA. We talked about Matt Shaw. Cade Horton, right? What a season by Cade Horton. Here's Jed on what he saw from Cade Horton.
He was in a good position. He was gonna be on the roster if we won on Saturday. He would have been on this next roster. He wouldn't have been stretched out to probably pitch more than a couple innings, but that was our plan was to be able to use him. He was throwing bullpens by the end, and so the expectation is that he has a totally normal off season. He may rest it a bit now to let that rib continue to heal. But he was exceptional. And he wanted to pitch so badly. I think that was one of the hardest parts of that whole situation was that he tried. He really did. He tried to push through it, and we just realized there was no way to do it. He was incredible in the second half. I just felt like start to start, watching him evolve as a pitcher. He picked up new things. I mean, the changeup was sort of a new pitch when we got him, and he developed that really well. He started using a two-seamer more. Obviously, he pounds the zone and is super efficient. His second half was exceptional, and he put himself in the conversation to be Rookie of the Year. Given how much of a competitor he is, I was sad for him that he didn't get a pitch in the postseason, and I know that's going to be his number one goal, going forward. But just a great development year. Great job by Cade. Great job by the coaching staff with him, and just excited for things going forward. And I expect he'll have a completely normal offseason.
All right. So Shota Imanaga goes on the IL after his May 4th start, and Cade gets called up in New York. He started out okay, had a couple bad starts at the end of June against Seattle and especially against Houston. But after the calendar flipped to July, Dustin, he was otherworldly. I mean, it was arguably one of the best. Arguably, he might be even the best pitcher in baseball, right? He was 8-1 with an MLB low 1.03 ERA in 12 starts, 51 strikeouts to 15 walks. And as Jed kind of alluded to in that clip, Dustin, every start, he just got better and better and better. To me, one of the highlights of the season was watching him outduel Paul Skeens. Again, when they played against Pittsburgh.
Well, that happened a couple times, right? They faced off a couple times.
Yeah, and I thought he held his own. I thought he looked great, but that last time
I'll pitch him the one time Friday at Wrigley, I thought.
Yeah, I thought that one time, I think it was in Pittsburgh, it was just
that was the second time. Yep.
To me, unfortunately, his season came to an end after he was pulled from the last start against the Mets, scratched against the wild card in division series with a fractured rib. But Dustin, last year when he got promoted early up into AAA in May, he wasn't there long, and he had a shoulder strain issue. He was out, and then he came back in August, and then he was shut down right after that. And so he just made 5 starts with the I Cubs and threw 34 and a third innings across AA and AAA. But as you heard Jed say, he's going to have a normal offseason, right? A little rest for the ribs, but it's going to heal. Where do you slot Cade in your rotation next year? Like, where realistically would you like to see him? I mean, do you see him as being a front end rotation guy?
Well, I think he's definitely one or two. I mean, as the team stands right now, that doesn't mean that Jed couldn't go get an ace, more of a fireballer type. But I mean, and even if he did that, I think he's no worse than third. I mean, you're assuming Justin Steele comes back and is in good form and in good health. So he's your top lefty starter, and Cade Horton's your top righty starter. Let's say that, right? And then maybe they go out and buy or trade for another power arm in the starting rotation. But no matter, I mean, he would definitely be top three, right? He'd be in your top three no matter what.
And Matthew Boyd, we can't forget Boyd had a hell of a year.
Hell of a year. I mean, I'm not saying he's not part of my rotation, but I mean, I would be shocked that Matthew Boyd could match this year. I would still say Justin Steele and Cade Horton greater than Matthew Boyd.
So if you're starting the season, right, and you're talking about your opening day starter at Wrigley on a cold March, you're talking about Justin Steele lefty starting off, and then going to Cade Horton as a righty, right? Then you go Matt Boyd lefty, Jamison Tyone righty with
Shota behind him. Shota behind him. All of a sudden, Shota's a 5, right? Shota goes from being the ace to a 5.
All right. Now the last clip is on a couple of young guys. It's interesting.
Well, I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing different? I mean,
that's honestly how I look at it. And right now, but again, you got guys that need to stay healthy. Justin Steele, one of them, and then the question for a lot of these guys, especially for Horton and Boyd, is how they bounce back after a lot of innings last year.
Correct.
So that those are the things that I think about right now. But here's the last clip, and Dustin, I think this kind of goes to your DH idea right here, talking about Owen Casey and Moises Ballesteros.
Both those guys are really good young hitters, for sure. I think that they have really bright futures. Exactly when and how that happens, I'm not sure, but I think one of the things I'm most proud of this team is, I think when you look at our production and look at the players, I think from a recent standpoint, you're talking about like Pete coming up and developing and producing. You're talking about Cade having a great year. Matt Shaw had a great second half. But even even Nico, like I think he played his best baseball in the second half. But we've seen the time has taken to get there. He's a homegrown player. I think that's the lifeblood of baseball today. You have to have good young players. I think those are the guys that have real upside that can surprise you and have great years even beyond projections. And so I consider Moises and Owen in that group. And I think, like I said, I think their futures are really bright.
I'm the only thing that frustrates me, Dustin, is when you knew that Kyle Tucker had the injury, to his hand. The fact that you didn't want to, and I know you've mentioned this, that maybe the agent or the player had something to do with it as far as Kyle Tucker is concerned. But I would have loved to have seen what Owen Casey would have done in a couple weeks stretch while Kyle Tucker was resting that hand.
Well, I don't disagree with that at all. I would have liked to have seen that too.
Right, but were there other people involved, I guess, who was behind the decision?
Right, in my opinion, there were, right, yeah.
Right, if it was
an opinion, it's just an opinion. It's not a fact. I'm not reporting that. I've heard that or anything like that. It's just what I think.
Right. So I think all in all, I was frustrated that I would have loved to have seen both Moises and Owen get a lot more chances, a lot more opportunities. And I think that might have really helped out, Kyle, as far as getting better and being rested for the postseason, which is when the Cubs really need him. We're going to talk about, stars being stars in the postseason. Kyle Tucker wasn't a star. And that's why the Cubs are in Cancun, to take Big Papi's term, right?
The Cubs lose. The Cubs lose. More Big Papi for you there. We are listening to the Fly the W podcast. It is episode number 62. It is season number 4, and we're glad to be part of the Blue Wire Network. Don't forget, you can listen, you can download, you can review, you can subscribe, you can give us a 5-star review, you can email us. Lots of things you can do. Crawly's Clubhouse at gmail.com. and you can watch us on YouTube. In this segment, Crawly talks to Alex Cohen, who just wrapped up his first year as broadcasting with the Marquee Sports Network. Alex tells us what it was like to be part of the Cubs 2025 season. Give it a listen.
Joining me, our old friend, Alex Cohen. Alex, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, Crawly. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Well, I'm trying to think back. You have had a pretty unbelievable season, and I know that a lot of times when minor leaguers get called up to the big leagues, the manager kind of beats around the bush and talks serious, and then all of a sudden they find out. What was it like for you to find out, because look, I mean, you did a great job in Iowa. We visited you at Des Moines, the Iowa Cubs. We love the Cubs. Everything's great there. But obviously the dream of every broadcaster is to be able to broadcast major league games. When did you find out that you were going to be part of the Marquee Network?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a lengthy process. Started doing spring training games in 2023. Did some spring training games in 2024. And then I was actually in Chicago, June of 2024. We were in the middle of 2 road trips with Iowa. I think it was Indianapolis and Columbus. And like I would do during the off days, I would come in and, try to spend it in Chicago and watch baseball at Wrigley Field. So I was there. I got a text message from one of the bosses at Marquee, Nick Steger, saying, hey, come on in. Let's just shoot the biz for a little bit. So I went into his office and we were just chatting. And he's like, we got some good things, going on in the next couple months. I'm like, what do you got going on? He's like, well, like you making your big league debut. It's like, all right, like that's pretty neat. Am I getting punked? Are there cameras here? And that was in June. I made my big league debut July 14, 2024. That was at Busch Stadium. It was Cubs Cardinals. Cubs hit 6 home runs and they won. Then July 19th, it was Cubs Diamondbacks at Wrigley Field. And it was, despite the loss, a really special environment and a really special experience for me.
And you also got to call a no-hitter for Shohei Ohtani, a game I was supposed to be at, and I couldn't make it last second. So
Priorities. Priorities.
Oh my God. So, we talked, you and I, we talked during Cubs convention, and, look at you all. You can get dusted up. Look at that. Look at how handsome you look there.
Man, I look a lot more handsome there than now. What happened to the year? It's a stress, man.
Well, was it stress because you were back out there for spring training and you were now going to be calling every Sunday for Marquee? Obviously, Bukshiambi, the normal broadcaster, is going to go and do the ESPN Game of the Week on radio, which he's great at. But that kind of opened up, a seat for you to kind of do that. And how excited were you to have that opportunity to be the everyday guy, to kind of have a regular gig as far as Sundays are concerned?
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. Just being able to relocate to Chicago. I mean, everything that I was doing to that point was on a fill-in basis. And after the fill-in opportunities in 2024 and calling the no-hitter, they essentially said if you are 4 miles away, you will get more calls and more opportunities than if you're 4 hours away. And that's why you work in minor league baseball for 15 years, is for a call like that. So relocated to Chicago, and they told me that I'll do anywhere between 20, 25, 30 games when Boog is doing Sunday Night Baseball, when Boog has other commitments. And that was enough for me, being able to do spring training games and then going out to Japan and then, doing some series in April and May when Boog was taking care of his health. And then, going back to the Sunday slate during the summer. Like, I couldn't imagine a better season.
Well, I mean, what an incredible start to your full-time Cubs career in a trip to Japan.
Yeah,
I got to tell you, I wanted to go so bad. I couldn't make it work with work. I know priorities, but got to pay the bills, right? Got to keep the lights on.
Right.
But boy, oh boy, that trip to Japan. And I don't know if people don't know Scotty Shagon, photographer for Marquee and all this stuff. You guys have a little bit of a similarity. You guys kind of look alike. And just
do we? Oh, like our similar haircuts and facial hair, just general disposition. You don't say.
I'm just telling you, I would have paid to see you guys in Japan. That looked like a lot of fun. Tell our listeners a little bit about, I mean, I'm gonna guess you've never been to Japan prior to this trip?
I was actually in Japan in 2019. I was broadcasting international baseball out there for the World Baseball Softball Confederation. So it wasn't my first rodeo out there, but definitely a different type of trip when you're traveling with a big league team and you're traveling on the big league charter, and you're walking around and you see pictures and billboards and signs on buildings of Shohei Ohtani, and you're playing Shohei Ohtani, for 2 games in a couple days. I mean, it was madness out there. I mean, it was a week-long trip of 2 exhibition games and 2 regular season games, and game 1, pitch 1, Shota against Shohei, and it just doesn't get much bigger and better than that. It was a special trip. It was one that went by really quickly, and one that still feels like, it was a day ago, but also a decade ago.
Now, when you're there, did you kind of get a feeling that created an incredible bonding experience for the players? Because
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
When when the season ended, all these players talked about how much they cared about each other and the way that group kind of did it. And I just kind of got a feeling those type of trips really kind of get to know people. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. When you have a 10-hour trip and a 12-hour trip, depending on what direction the wind's blowing, and you're staying in a foreign country where, I mean, there's some foreign countries where they really do speak English. In Japan, they don't. So you're kind of on an island by yourself, and you're trying to figure out the transit system, and you're trying to, figure out like what places your family wants to go to while you're at practice and you're at the game. So it was an incredible bonding experience for the staff, for the players, and you could see that relationships are being formed and made throughout that time.
Now, you also had a couple other really cool experiences. One I want to hit on was being able to call a game from the Yeti Yard with Cliff Floyd.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, obviously, if you've been to Wrigley Field and been to the broadcasting booth, you're overlooking Lake Michigan. It's just a completely different perspective. Now, I've been in that area before, not specifically the Yeti Yard since it's been there, but that general area. What was it like calling a game from center field?
It was awesome. I mean, credit to the Yeti, to the company and the sponsorship there, and Marquee for putting that on and having that idea. And obviously, like, it's a different viewpoint. Like, they're calling balls and strikes from 420 feet away, and it's not something that I think that I would want to do every single game, but like once a year, twice a year, every month throughout the summer. Like, it's special just being out there with the fans and hearing people catcall Cliff Floyd while I'm calling a 2-2 pitch. Like, it was a lot of fun. And the fact that they played the Braves and won that game, and you can hear "Go Cubs Go" from that vantage point. You look to your right and you look to your left, and it's just people in the bleachers and beer snakes and fun. I mean, it was sensory overload there. It was a pretty special broadcast. I loved it.
Now, I've gotten to know you over the years but obviously first through social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes it becomes interesting because we meet each other on social media, but then when you kind of get into the real life thing, right? There are the people that are always on social media, but there's also people that are always at the game. What was it like for you to kind of spend that full season enveloped in this Cub culture that people don't realize is around the ballpark all the time? And when you're talking about like Sam Bernero, or you're talking about, Mai Tai or Bleacher Jeff, or, just the whole Captain Cubbo, whoever, but that the people that you get to know over a season, what was that like for you to kind of be part of that Cub culture?
It was so important to be able to provide that context to what is all the Chicago Cubs fan base? The Venn diagram of Cubs fans. I mean, you have like the rabid Cubs fans, you have the kid Cubs fans, you have the bloggers, and you have everybody. You have that little piece in the middle that everybody has like a common goal of singing "Go Cubs Go" and seeing the Cubs win and go to the playoffs and win playoff series. So it was really important for me, coming from Iowa for 7 years, to be in Chicago for the entire season and go to games that I wasn't broadcasting and sit in the stands and drink beers and go to Murphy's and do all that with Cubs fans and being immersed in the Cubs culture, the Chicago Cubs culture, not just the Iowa Cubs culture, not just the minor league people, not just the minor league fans, like everything. Like, it was all encompassing, Cubs centric, 2025 summer, and I loved it.
And you didn't completely cut off your roots with Iowa. You were at the corner tap room for the mozzarella stick challenge, right?
I did. Love my trip to Cascade, Iowa, and the corner tap room. I mean, it definitely raised my cholesterol a little bit with 8 mozzarella sticks in a span of 2.5 innings. But just being able to do stuff like that, again, Marquee giving us the creative opportunities to go to places like Japan and Cascade, but also being able to tell a story. And like, there is a baseball story, there is a personal story that goes along with those places and other places. Just being able to being given the creative latitude to go do stuff like that was pretty fun. I got to give Marquee all the credit for that.
Now, how easy was the transition for you this year, because you got to know a lot of the players went through their time in Iowa, whether you're talking about PCA or Moball or Owen Casey, Daniel Palencia. How much did that kind of make your job a little bit easier, because you know these guys' strengths, you know what they like, their tendencies, and it's a familiar face when you go into work?
All the above. I mean, it was definitely it was important for me to be able to latch onto those relationships, especially early on. The familiarity. Like, you call a game from the Tokyo Dome, you call a game at Wrigley Field, it's unfamiliar territory. So you're trying to latch onto things that, okay, like, this does make sense. And seeing Pete Crow Armstrong roam center field makes sense. And seeing Mo Baller step in from the left side and make hard contact makes sense. So it was really nice to see those faces, but also like the Nico Horners and the Ian Happs. And I was in Iowa for 7 years, so seeing those familiar faces and seeing Daniel Palencia throw 101 mile per hour fastballs in the big leagues, like, okay, like, this makes sense to me. I've seen this before.
Now, we talked a little bit about you and Cliff at the Yeti. That looked like an absolute blast. And obviously you did a lot of work with JD. Is there like a camaraderie between everybody as far as the booth is concerned? And, I know that, Miguel Esparza and Jorge Moreno are up there. I'm sure you probably talked to Boog and Ron and Pat Hughes. Like, how much do you try to like learn and absorb from all the different people that you meet when you're up here in Chicago?
Every day. I mean, it is talking to Boog and JD and Demp and Cliff and Joe Girardi when it was with Marquee last year, and Elise and Taylor, and then going on to the radio side. I mean, you talk about Pat Hughes, Hall of Famer, Ron Coomer, one of the best. Zach Zabin does a great job. And then the Spanish broadcasters. I mean, you fly on the team planes with them. You're in the hotel with them. You're dealing with the same summer, the same parts of life with them when it comes to that. So, and they've seen a lot more of that from a big league standpoint than I have. So it would be not smart of me not to seek them out for advice and tutelage and just seeing what they do on a day-to-day standpoint. So, with everybody from Marquee and the score side, like, it was really, really nice to be able to get to know them over the course of the year and see what they do and try to emulate that.
Now, one of my favorite shows on Marquee is Road to Wrigley. Obviously, there's Elise and Lance and Jim and all of that. It really, truly is a fun show. What other things besides calling games did you really enjoy doing for Marquee?
Yeah, the content side. We were able to provide like a lot of app exclusive content, on the Marquee Sports Network app, and again, getting that creative flexibility to do so. Being able to take the trip to Anaheim and have Elise and my wife go surfing and a lesson and be able to like put together a video of that. It is being in Cincinnati with Scotty and doing the Taste of Cincinnati challenge of Skyline Chili and powdered donuts and everything that would also raise my cholesterol. It is going to Miami and trying a Cubano in Little Havana, just being able to call baseball, but also do things that are outside of baseball that bring the baseball experience together. Like, I know that it's a lot of baseball, but these cities and these places have different characteristics than Chicago does, especially during the summer. So to make sure that the fans can kind of get a glimpse of that and those fan bases and those places. So, a lot of app exclusive content, a lot of Road to Wrigley stuff, and then the Cubs Daily podcast. Being able to still talk Cubs baseball, but more of a long form story standpoint. It's something that I hadn't done that much of before, but at the end of the day, it's talking baseball. So being able to tell those stories day to day, not from a play-by-play perspective, but just things on, Cade Horton putting together one of the best second halves from a pitcher that we've seen for the Cubs in quite some time. Well, how historic is it? We'll tell you. So it was really nice to talk about the Cubs from that standpoint.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have on social media, you have the Voice of Cohen too, just in case anyone's wondering.
Now, Voice of Cohen got hacked. Thank you, Elon. Appreciate it. But yes, Voice of Cohen too.
You keep a pretty even keel in trying to get people to kind of understand, not to be so reactionary, right? Like not to be so reactionary, which as Cub fans, we are guilty of, and sometimes I tell people it's not like football where you live and die with every game. You got to kind of take a long view of things. you keep a good social media presence and you do try to kind of talk some people off the ledge sometimes. I know you're not always successful, but hey, you're out there fighting the good fight, right?
I mean, also, like, I'm being myself. Like, I'm not just trying to, like, portray a narrative. This is me talking. Like, this is how I view baseball. This is 15 years of being in professional baseball. It's being in clubhouses. It's talking to front office members and seeing how they think and how they view a 162-game season, but also being a fan and caring about baseball and seeing, like, what the other side thinks, how they live and die by every game and every pitch. So, again, we talk about that Venn diagram. It's the players, it's the coaches, it's the front office, it's the fans, it's the people watching. You bring those circles together, there's a middle ground there. So it's for me to be able to find that middle ground and to be able to communicate that middle ground. I get to broadcast baseball. I get to work for an organization and a television network, but I also love baseball, and I'm also a fan first. So I have to be responsible for blending those two together.
No, I got to say, you've been signed for 1 year, full year. And the very first year you're there, Marquee's been around since 2020. Very first year of their year, they make the postseason.
1 for 1, baby.
I'm not saying you're lucky. I'm just saying we'll take a look. We're going to have Lance look at the numbers on that one. But what was it like for you to experience Wrigley playoff baseball in that kind of atmosphere?
It was the best. It was the best. Like, I wasn't around for 2016. So being able to watch a home playoff game at Wrigley Field, watch them win a playoff series at Wrigley Field, it was deafening. Like, the hair on my arm still sticks up. Definitely not the hair on my head, but the hair on my arms. There's no better place than Wrigley Field to watch baseball games. I'm not just saying that as somebody who works for the Cubs. I'm not just saying that as somebody who lives in the city of Chicago. I'm saying that as somebody who's watched a lot of baseball, cares deeply about the game, and the profound feeling that you get hearing "Go Cubs Go" in a playoff game, in a big game, a walk-off. There's no better feeling.
I got to tell you, I've been to every Cubs postseason game in the 2000s, except for Game 4 of the World Series, which wasn't that great anyway. That Game 4 against Milwaukee, to bring it back to Milwaukee, was, I told people, a top 3 postseason moment as far as electricity in the crowd that night. There's no way. I mean, you guys do such a good job of trying to describe it, but unless you're there, it's otherworldly, and it's intoxicating. It really, truly is.
Yeah, I think Game 4 of the Brewer series, and then Game 3 of the wild card too. Like, the fact that you have like a season deciding game. The feeling during that 9th inning was profound. It was something that I'll never forget.
And you had to, I'm sure you heard plenty of positive comments, but how much did it mean to you to kind of have so much of Cub fans really enjoying hearing your call?
Better than not enjoying my call. No, it was, hearing the feedback is great. But just seeing like the impact that calling the game has on Cubs fans. I mean, I remember doing my first Cubs game at Busch Stadium, and I was told the advice, like, it's the same game, different stadium. It's the same play, just a different auditorium. And with all due respect to that advice, that's a load of crap, because calling a game at Wrigley Field is different. Calling a Cubs win at Wrigley Field, when you let the crowd noise take over and you let the game breathe and you're able to communicate that story and communicate that atmosphere, it's special. So just to hear that it impacted somebody positively, people positively, like, it makes the job that much more rewarding.
Alex, I tell people all the time, I think Cub fans don't realize how lucky we have it, that we have just amazing options for listening to baseball, whether it's through Marquee or 670 The Score or the Spanish broadcast. Not, sometimes you're lucky if you just get one of those, in a baseball city. But I think here with Wrigley Field and the Cubs, we have the best of the best. And I can speak for myself, and I know a whole bunch more Cub fans that are just so happy to have you as a part of that team and enjoy hearing your calls on Sunday, my friend.
No, that's really kind of you. And you hit the nail on the head. Like, on the radio side, you get to listen to a Hall of Famer with Coom and Zach. You get to listen to Boog, who, just broadcasts the World Series on ESPN. Like, he's one of the best baseball broadcasters. He's on Mount Rushmore to me. He ain't number 4. And being able to hear him do it with JD and Cliff and Demp and Elise, it's just an awesome team. And you brought up the Spanish broadcasters, and I can listen to Miguel broadcast paint drying, let alone baseball or singing the 7th inning stretch. I mean, it's just a great team to be a part of, and it's a great team to broadcast baseball for. So I think Cubs fans, hopefully they enjoy it. Hopefully they don't take it for granted, and fortunately, there'll be baseball in 2026, and we'll be able to call it. So.
100%. Alex, tell our listeners where they can find your work, where they can llisten, where they can interact with you.
Yeah, sure. They can watch on Marquee Sports Network. They can download the Marquee Sports Network app and view all of the app exclusive digital content. You can follow me on X, Voice of Cohen 2, not Voice of Cohen. Again, got hacked. But Voice of Cohen 2, and yeah, just follow me along with that. And as you said, like I like to try to keep the peace. I'm also very active on social media, much to the demise of my wife's patience. So, I like communicating. Like at the end of the day, like just talking baseball. Like I'm one of you guys. I just get to do it for a living. I'm very fortunate to do it.
You're a lucky man. You're a blessed man, and we're lucky to have you, Alex. Thank you so much for jumping on, and we'll talk again in the future. All right.
Thanks for having me on, Crawly. Appreciate it. Go Cubs, go.
This is season 4, episode 62 of the Fly the W podcast, the Cubs 2025 Autopsy Part 2, the Players Edition. Great job, Crawly, with Alex Cohen. We heard Jed mentioning some of the players, and now, Crawly, it's time to dive into the playoffs. We have a World Series set to go on Friday in Toronto. Blue Jays, for the first time since 1993, and getting on the team that won it all last year in the Dodgers.
Yep. After spring training, the Japanese series, the 162-game season, the wild card division series, and the league championship, we have our World Series matchup. And Dustin, it's fair to say that you and I were a little bit off on who we thought it was going to be, but here's
I think a lot off, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think we had Toronto or Yankees beating Toronto, I think is kind of how it looked. But if you take a look here, boy, did the Dodgers just bully their way in. And if I think that the Toronto Seattle ALCS to me is going to go down as one of the greats. I thought there was a lot of great games in there. And when we looked, Dustin, at the AL, it really, to me, was a lot of fun. The Blue Jays won an improbable comeback against the Mariners in Game 7 to win the AL pennant. Now, it didn't look that way. The Mariners took both games in Toronto, right, going back home with a 2-0 lead, but the Blue Jays pounded the Mariners in Games 3 and 4 to tie the series up. The Mariners beat the Blue Jays in Game 5, 6-2, to take a 3-2 lead and needing to win only one of 2 games in Toronto to make it to their first World Series as a franchise. Vladimir Guerrero and the Blue Jays won Game 6, 6-2 to force a decisive Game 7, and it looked like that the Mariners were going to do it. Julio Rodriguez and Cal Raleigh both hit solo home runs. The Mariners were up 3-1 in the bottom of the 7th. Runners at first and third, 1 out. George Springer, who had to be taken out of Game 5 after getting drilled in the kneecap with a 97-mile-per-hour fastball, hits a 3-run homer, and the Blue Jays advance. Dustin, if you take a look at the Blue Jays in their playoff history, this is from OptiStats. The Blue Jays have had a game-winning 3+ run homer in the 7th or later to eliminate an opponent in all 4 rounds. 1993 World Series. I was talking to my friend Lucelle about this one. Joe Carter. Remember that one? Mm-hmm. Former Cub Joe Carter, Rick Sutcliffe deal. 2015 ALDS Bautista. Remember that one? The epic bat tossed. 2016 AL wild card, Encarnacion had one, and now ALCS George Springer. No other team has had more than one such home run at home in their entire history. They've done it 4 times, hitting a 3+ run home run in the 7th or later to eliminate an opponent. That is mind-blowing. Yeah. For the Mariners, be the 48th World Series since the Mariners began in 1977. No other MLB, NBA, NFL, or NHL franchise has gone that long to begin its history without reaching the championship round while remaining in the same city.
Well, the Seahawks won though last night, Crawly, so everything was okay.
I got to tell you, like I said, I liked both teams. I love Vladito.
Both good story. There's good storylines on both sides of the American League side.
Right. And I loved Cal Raleigh. I love Julio Rodriguez. And I think maybe just the guy that likes to root in the underdog. I really wanted to see the Mariners in the World Series. But either way, I am going Team AL on this one all the way. But, Dustin, when it took the Blue Jays the maximum number of games to get past the Mariners, it took the Dodgers a minimum number of games to get past the Brewers. Blake Snell, game 1, 8 shutout innings. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, 1 run in 9 innings in game 2. Tyler Glasnow, it looks less impressive, 5 2/3 innings of 1-run ball. But Dustin, you've seen in these playoffs how quick these guys get pulled. I mean, he almost went 6 innings, Glasnow, and that was seen as kind of like meh. And then, Dustin, we have to talk about game 4. Shohei Ohtani took the mound, led off for the Dodgers, and that was a performance for the ages.
You'll
right?
never see anything like it. I mean, if you ever wanted to know why he's called the unicorn, go watch that game. I mean, there's nothing there's nothing like it. He's one of one. He is him. All those things. It was unbelievable. And all the things they go through when he's the starting pitcher at home and they have all of his gear. He doesn't even go into the dugout, right? They've got the shin guard, the elbow guard, the gloves, the batting helmet, everything waiting for him and ready to go. And then boom, leads the game off with a home run for the Dodgers. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And I laugh at the people that said he wasn't worth, no guy's worth $800 million. That guy is. Yeah. That guy is worth $800 million. Only 12 hitters have ever hit 3 homers in a postseason game. Only 26 pitchers have ever recorded 10 plus strikeouts, 2 or less hits, and no runs in a postseason start. Yeah. Shohei did both.
Right.
The same game.
Both. I mean, it was unbelievable. Friday was it's a great sports weekend across the board. It was all kinds of great sports, and Friday it got going with that. I was thrilled that I got to watch it. I really enjoyed it.
One of our favorites, Sarah Lang, Slangs on Sports. Recap of Ohtani night. First leadoff home run by a pitcher in MLB history. First postseason multi-home run game by a pitcher. First game in MLB history with 3 home runs and 10 strikeouts. First player with 216-mile-per-hour home runs in a game under StatCast. That goes back to 2015. I mean, that one ball left the park. First player with 2 career games with 2 home runs and 10-plus Ks. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Any you care to make a prediction? I mean, you're probably pulling for the Blue Jays, but do you think the Blue Jays can actually win this thing?
Well, I do. But before we get there, I do have to kind of just have a little bit of glee here. The Brewers, according to Nugget Chef, the J. Kid, hit 118 in the 2025 NLCS.
Night Brewers. Night Brewers.
The worst batting average by any team in any postseason series of at least 3 games in MLB history. The Brewers are also the first number 1 overall seed to be swept in a best-of-7 series since the St. Louis Cardinals in the 2004
What good company. What good
World
company. Right?
Series. Did you hear Pat Murphy's post-game comments about what he had to say about the NLCS and the Cubs?
The DS or the CS?
CS.
I did not. About the Cubs? No, I did not hear him say anything about the Cubs.
Here's Pat Murphy.
Learn a lot from it. We had a lot of young players. You mentioned Durbin, Churrio's in his second year. He looked pretty comfortable the whole series. So it's, a lot of good things. Chad Patrick, Miz, a lot of guys stepped up. So excited about that for them. They have experienced this. They've seen it firsthand. They know how precious it is. You lead the league in wins, and you do some great things for the franchise, but still, there's work to be done. So the emotional series in the Cubs is you guys have to know the Brewers-Cubs thing well. You have to have been part of it to understand how it really zapped a lot out of us emotionally, and then to have to come back and play right away. I think, and then we lose a 1-run game, and it just takes us off us. It took us off it a little bit, and then the pitching performances by the Dodgers, basically put the hammer down.
The emotional toll that playing the Cubs had on them affected them in the NLCS. Can you believe that?
I missed that. I'm disappointed that I missed that. Everything going on. Okay. I mean, okay.
Here's the thing, though, Dustin. We said it. The way they acted, the way they celebrated, flying the L, their whole social media, they were so emotionally invested in this series when, yeah, you can be happy about it. Yeah, you can celebrate it. But what have you done? You gotten into the NLCS. Great. You had a team in the Dodgers in front of you, and that was your World Series, beating the Cubs. That was so important to you. And you know what, Dustin? I just don't get it, because here's what I'm going to tell you. Let's take the Cubs and the Cardinals in the 2000s, right? For the most part, the Cardinals always beat the Cubs. So when you finally beat them in 2015 to move on, it felt like that was an important stepping stone. But the Brewers have had the Cubs number since 2018. It's not like it's been like, oh, the Brewers just fell short of the Cubs. They just didn't get over the hump with the Cubs. That hasn't happened. The Brewers have owned the division since 2017, 2018. Right. 2018, they've owned the division. So I don't understand the over-the-top celebration and rubbing it in Cubs' face. They're just everything. It was ridiculous. And you know what? If that took something out of them, I'm glad it did. And you screwed up. That was a big mistake. And I knew it. The way they were acting, the way they were celebrating, I knew it was going to affect them against the Dodgers. I'm not saying that the Brewers would have done it, but here's the thing, Dustin. You heard Jed Hoyer earlier in his clip say that if Cade Horton, if the Cubs would have gotten into the NLCS, Cade Horton would have been pitching. Now, he wasn't stretched out. He
wasn't going to start, right? Wasn't going to start, but he would have been.
He might have started, but it might have been.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
3 innings, right?
3 innings tops, right?
3 innings tops. Let's put it 3 innings. Do you think if the Cubs win that game in Milwaukee, Game 5, do you think that the Cubs had a better shot? Now the Brewers were 7-0 against the Dodgers in the regular season. Do you think the Cubs would have been a better matchup against the Dodgers?
Well, I don't think the Cubs get swept. I think they make it more of a series. I'll say that. I feel comfortable saying that.
All right.
I don't think that's a stretch. You think they still get swept?
I don't know.
I know you don't know. Have an opinion, damn it.
It's hard to say because here's what we're saying. Look, good pitching makes hitting look bad. Okay, so I don't know if the Cubs could have gotten to Yamamoto or Blake Snell. I mean,
but I think the Cubs would have. To your point, though, I think the Cubs had better starting pitching than what the Brewers trotted out.
Right. I think
you know what I mean. I think they would have had. I think they would have had a better. I think even the Cubs openers, to your point, Cade Horton would have been a much better opener than any of the openers that the Brewers trotted out.
I would have loved to have seen what would have happened, and hopefully, next year, God willing, the baseball gods be willing, the Cubs will have a chance to take the Dodgers. But to go back to your question,
all right. So that being said, Crawly, to your point, then do the Blue Jays have a chance, or is this, as we brought up today on the Mully and Haw show during the Pick Six, is this quite simply the Dodgers Invitational?
I wouldn't. I'm very curious.
Don't say I don't know, or I'm going to come over here and strangle you.
I'm very curious because they have gone this whole way, the Blue Jays, without Bo Bichette, one of their best players.
No, he's back.
He's back.
Available. But who do you sit? I mean, that team's in a good form right now.
I'd rather have that problem.
Yeah,
I'd rather have that problem than what we had, where we lost Cade Horton, and now you're desperate. So you know what? I don't think it's going to be as a walk in the park as the NLCS was for the Dodgers. I think Toronto's going to put up a fight. And so I'm curious to see how that all plays out. I don't think it's just going to be Dodgers in 4. If anything, I would say Dodgers in 6 is my prediction.
6. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's a great, you turned me on to Sarah Langs on Twitter. Now she had a tweet yesterday about the fact that of LCSs that have been sweeps playing against an LCS that went 7, there have been 5 of them since 1985. All 4 teams that went to Game 7 won the World Series.
Yeah.
So that means Blue Jays win the World Series based on that trend. Based on that trend, I'll take it. Let's have the Blue Jays not let the Dodgers ruin baseball, even though I don't think it's really ruining baseball, but it's fun to say, right? It's fun to say.
That's a subject for a different podcast.
It'd be fun World Series. We'll keep you updated. Of course, we'll keep you updated on all the Cubs news associated, all the ties. That is a wrap, Crawly. Don't forget to listen, download, review, subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Email us thoughts or questions, Crawly's Clubhouse, gmail.com. And you can watch us by subscribing to the Crawly's Clubhouse YouTube channel. Crawly, enjoy the World Series, and we'll catch up soon.
Baseball has been phenomenal, and there's still so much to talk about. We're always here with all your Cubs news. Go Cubs!
It's all over.